Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Grape fam. You know what time it is. It's time for the weekly update on June 12th, 2022. We're going to start with stats. So looking at the price for Grape, we did see that last week Grape topped out and created a new monthly high of $1.40. We had a pretty rough weekend for crypto. We saw some poor CPI numbers from the US Fed this past Friday. Obviously, Bitcoin and Ethereum suffered pretty strongly, and we can see that Grape was not completely immune. We did see, a little bit of a drawdown here in the Grape price over the last couple days, following actually a period of exactly a month from May 12th. We can draw that out and see that over this 30-day period here, Grape actually did go up 80% in price. I would expect that, as the price creates a safer entry point for people to make Grape LP, for people to make Grape nodes, we will see this sort of, retrace naturally correct itself in the next couple weeks. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And as always, it is nice to see that Grape is still, a healthy margin above peg after what has been a really poor weekend for crypto overall. We can also just jump over to the swap school pool, same price action, but we can see that liquidity in Grape MiM and swap school has topped $1 million this week. So that's awesome. It just shows, completely voluntary community buy-in, people choosing to either break their LP or make new LP and take it over to swap school. So I think as a project and as a community, we shall be really proud in the role, that we've played in helping swap school roll out. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about swap school and about partnerships like that later in the video. But let's move on to the wine stats. We can see that, as Grape took that little 15% retrace that we just looked at, wine also, retraced, and we've seen a similar pattern in wine where it's basically 30 days of continuous growth, right? From May 12th to June 12th, this 30-day period, whereas Grape put on 80%, the wine price actually went up close to 400% here. So it's healthy to see a little bit of a retrace. But as you can see, the depths of this dip actually got bought up quite quickly because, as we saw a second ago, Grape is still healthily over peg, and that means winery rewards are still printing. So I'm not surprised to see people buying up this dip, and it looks like we might stay in this range for a little while. But definitely something to keep your eye on. As we all know, wine is the more volatile token, so it'll be interesting to see what that price action looks like this week. All right, let's keep going with stats. And as we can see, the Grape Protocol TVL, we topped 12 million this week. We're now sitting at this around 11.2 million level. The NFT collection is still sitting at a floor price between 14 and 15 AVAX for a goon sack. The next tier up, the wine glasses, are looking at around 20 to 30 AVAX now. So we've seen, a pretty intense growth in the floor price of this NFT collection, and now we're consolidating a little bit. We did actually see an NFT airdrop just go out this week. So that was 20,000 grapes and 25 wine tokens to holders. You can see that there's still some left in the pool that will go out later in the month. But another interesting thing to know about the NFT reward pool is that wine nodes now give 3 tickets for the airdrops instead of 1. So because wine has really appreciated in price over the last month, we want to make sure we reward anyone who's spending that, roughly $150, $130 on half a wine token to make a wine node. They should be rewarded appropriately. So as always, you can calculate your tickets here in the NFT airdrop calculator. Okay, and on to our updates for this week. We have the Liquid Capital Rebase project that we've mentioned a couple times over the past few weeks. They have officially opened up their Discord to the public, so you can check out their Discord. You can check out the Liquid Capital white paper here. We see on their list of partners, Grape Finance listed front and center at the top of the list, and we also have, just a ton of amazingly successful and hardworking DeFi teams represented here in some different projects from El Taco Nodes, Piggy Finance, Frozen Walrus, Goldmint Finance, Magic Finance. So just a ton of great DeFi projects from across BSC Chain, Avalanche Chain, Phantom Chain, and it's exciting to see so many of them come together to put this project together. It's definitely one that you don't want to miss, and we're happy to invite you to the Discord. So come over there and check it out. As we mentioned before, there will be a pre-sale link on the Grape homepage for you to be able to buy some Liquid Capital tokens, get them at that discounted pre-sale price, and also help out Grape with your purchase. So we're excited about that opportunity, and stay posted for more news on that. And next up, we have Gladiator Finance, which has just included Grape in its King of the Coliseum risk to earn game. So you see we actually have a Grape and a wine pool here, and the way this is going to work is you deposit some Grape into the pool if you are the most recent depositor, as in nobody deposits after you, for a period of 3 to 6 hours. In this tournament, it's 3 hours, so you'll win, the entire prize pool. Last time around, it was close to 1,100 grapes. And obviously, if someone else does knock you off, you have an opportunity to restake and restart your timer. We're always happy to see grape and wine be included in ecosystem projects like Gladiator Finance. So, just another step to supporting the growth of the AVAX ecosystem through, grape liquidity just spreading around the network. So definitely check these guys out and let us know what you think of the game. Finally, I want to address a really astute community question about wine node rewards. So we've seen that the APR percentage on wine nodes has dropped a little bit lower than the grape node options. I've mentioned in the past that personally that doesn't really bother me as an investor because I believe wine is a token that it's going to appreciate more in price than grape. So in my opinion, it's a great option to be able to get wine as the reward token instead of grapes. But to just understand a little bit more how the wine node rewards work, right? We have the question of, you can see here, the max supply of wine is going to be 45,500 wine tokens. Currently, we're at 20,000. The way this new wine gets released into the ecosystem and the way, this 20,000 number creeps up towards the 45,000 total supply is through the vineyard farms. So the only way that new wine gets released into the economy is through these farms here in the vineyard, and these all get rewarded with new wine. On the other hand, the wine nodes do not pay out new wine the same way that the vineyard does. The wine nodes pay out wine using the wine tokens that other noders use to make their nodes. There's obviously a little cut for the treasury, there's a little cut for the NFT holders, but the important thing to understand here is that the wine being paid out to you for your node is coming from other wine depositors. It's not coming from the treasury. It's not coming from that locked up supply of wine the way it is going to the vineyard. So the vineyard's getting fresh wine that's inflating the wine supply over time. The nodes are just recycling existing wine. Important thing to understand there is that even when wine emissions stop in about 6 months' time, wine nodes can still continue to pay out wine because, as I said, wine nodes are not relying on fresh wine to be released into the ecosystem. Now, yes, the vineyard farms will have to have a different reward mechanism introduced as wine emissions end. But, like I said, wine nodes, you have nothing to worry about with the nodes because that's existing wine. So the wine nodes can continue to pay out until long after wine emissions end, as long as people continue to create wine nodes. Alright, Grape, so it's time to put your big brain on and maybe pour yourself a glass of wine, because I want to get a little bit macro for a second and just take a look back so we can kind of appreciate the journey that we're on with the Grape project, right? So to help kind of do that, I want to take stock of basically where DeFi is at and where crypto's at as a technology and as an industry, right? And some of the thought leaders I think that are really the most worth listening to in this space are the guys between Andreessen Horowitz or A16Z, right? This is basically one of the dominant venture capitalist funds in the crypto space. And in my opinion, A16Z and Andreessen Horowitz have played a direct role in, sort of turning some of the notable names that now as crypto bulls into the Bitcoin maxis and crypto bulls that they are today, right? These are the guys who are able to talk to smart money, to talk to institutional power, and break it down for them. So I think it's really worth paying attention to what A16Z has to say about the industry. But what I want to do here is just play a couple minutes of this podcast they released, and this is a conversation between Chris Dixon and Eddie Lazarin, who are two partners at A16Z.
The next wave is going to be people thinking much more carefully about designing sustainable types of growth and using the incredible growth tool, but thinking very deeply about retention and keeping people in the system. And
I think of token rewards as like mentally, I picture it like you blow up a balloon and you let it go and it flies around the room and it zigzags and hits the wall and bounces around. Yeah, and it's like, I'm not a rocket scientist either, nor am I a pilot, but I imagine people that originally built rockets and planes had the same problem, right? And then eventually, I don't know if they bounced around the room, but I'm sure they didn't go in the direction they wanted it to.
So I'm sure that some of the things that Chris was talking about there are things and patterns and dynamics that you guys have noticed in some of the DeFi projects you've been involved with already, right? I love his analogy of the balloon that you blow up with air, it sputters around the room at intense speed, and then pretty quickly it's dead, right? And we've seen that happen with some token emissions project that just didn't nail their utilities, didn't roll out the right features at the right times, or just didn't perfect the rate of their token emissions, right? And we see that a little bit in the initial phase of Grape, where anytime you start to release a token, you start to bootstrap liquidity. If there's decent liquidity and not a high supply of tokens, you start off with this crazy high token price, right? And then typically with any reward token, we see it come back down to earth. What's really impressive about Grape, I would say, through kind of building the phase one of the project, and credit for this goes to the team that was around before I even joined, and that's really about Grape emissions just being tuned in a way that, yes, for some epochs, Grape was below peg, but it was designed in a way that Grape was able to go through contractions periods, go through growth periods, but overall just managed to find a steady organic trend of upwards growth in terms of total value locked and building that liquidity. So a lot of credit goes to the Grape teams and our dev LB for just developing a system that was able to grow over time organically while also doing things like fortifying the treasury and giving great protection against market downturns, which we've seen a ton of over the last few months. And unfortunately, I can probably speak for myself and maybe some of our community members that some of the other DeFi projects we've invested in have not been so successful at staying alive after that sort of initial exploding balloon phase, right?
And how do we take that powerful force and harness it to fulfill the Web3 vision? And to me, the Web3 vision is how do we build new networks? The killer app of the internet is networks. This is what you do with the internet. The internet is a system upon which you build new networks. You can build a network like Facebook or Twitter or email, SMTP, the web. And I believe there's going to be 10,000 new networks created in the next 100 years. How do we use tokens to create new networks where the people that do the work of building the network own and control the network instead of the company and the people that fund it and the founders of that company, in a way that builds better networks that are more inclusive and that incentivize long-term positive behavior?
Basically, he sees the killer app of the internet is networks, right? And it sounds kind of strange, but that's exactly what the biggest businesses on Web 2 are, right? Facebook, Twitter, they're all networks. The beautiful thing about network effects is that as the network grows, the network becomes more valuable to everybody who uses it. Now in Web 2, most of the profits from that network are captured by the network providers, right? The people that own Facebook, the people that own Twitter, they take a huge percentage of the profits that network makes. On the other hand, in a DeFi project like Grape, one of the most powerful things about the Grape network is actually the community liquidity. So yeah, the Grape treasury does hold some funds and hold some MiM, hold some Grape tokens, hold some Wine tokens, and it also owns some of the liquidity for the Grape token. But overwhelmingly, the liquidity for Grape and Wine is owned by the community. So when the Grape decides to partner with a new project like Swapsicle, one of the biggest challenges you encounter launching a new DEX, and Chris Dixon mentioned this, he called it the cold start problem, right? Is to make a DEX useful, you have to have that network of users providing liquidity. So with Grape being, a successful, mature DeFi project that's able to build over $10 million in, Grape MiM liquidity and Wine MiM liquidity, we're able to help a project like Swapsicle get off the ground way faster than they ever could have done without Grape. And we see that now with the Grape pool being over $1 million in TVL on Swapsicle. At this point, the Grape MiM pool is almost double the size of any other pool on Swapsicle. And Swapsicle is not just some small, side project. Swapsicle is actually, they've got a headquarters in the UK. They're hiring full-time developers. They're hiring full-time media. They clearly had some investment up front. They have some solid backing. But even with solid backing and solid investment, there's no replacement for volume coming through the project that's coming from real DeFi participants like the Grape community, right? So it just shows kind of the power of Grape in the ecosystem. And that's kind of, why I want to zoom out a little bit. I think we saw phase one, which was really focused on basically just building liquidity and rewarding the community for participating in that, right? And we saw that happen with kind of rewarding some community members with free Grape NFTs, right? Free winery collection NFTs that actually give you an ownership of the node proceeds. So now that we have, a strong community base, a wide community base invested in the project, we're kind of moving into what I see as phase two of Grape Finance, right? Which is where we're able to use that liquidity that we've built and kind of building out the Avalanche ecosystem, right? And lend a hand. And that also benefits, the Grape treasury if the Grape treasury chooses to invest. But it's not just about making those kind of venture capital style investments for the Grape treasury to profit, right? It's actually about the Grape community. All of the people providing Grape liquidity have an opportunity to profit. and sort of get to speak and vote with our wallets, right? If we don't like a partner protocol, we don't have to invest in it. If we do like it, like I like Swapsicle, and we've seen a lot of other people like Swapsicle, the Grape community actually plays a vital role in developing that project. And then the Grape community who invests in that project gets rewarded, right? In the form of node rewards, in the form of POPs tokens. So it's just beautiful to see, Grape kind of mature and blossom into this real driver of capital where, a Grape choosing to help out a new project can actually be a huge leg up and a huge force for that project's success. With that, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We're going to wrap it up. Until next week, Grape out.